USS Nimitz, the first of its kind. A class of aircraft carriers that has revolutionized the way America defends freedom and stands as an icon of versatility, technological superiority, and sheer power. Commissioned in 1975, this ship is the second longest serving aircraft carrier in the Navy today. The Nimitz and its crew are on their way to Bremerton, Washington for repairs and renovations, a process that will drastically affect their lives for the next year.
This is a new adventure for me. I've never lived in Washington before.
It's going to be nice. It's going to be a good change of pace. I'm looking forward to experiencing Washington, dry dock. Can't wait to see what we do with the ship. I grew up in a place like this where there's lots of snow, very temperate climate. Personally, I don't mind it. I'd rather be in San Diego, but it's still going to be nice. No one to waste for 11 months.
I myself, I grew up in the military, so I've traveled all over the world, and that's what I'm used to doing, but it'd be nice to give my kids a stable home for once. And then that'll last for a couple of years, and then it's time to move on again. So we're just looking forward to it. It's going to be really nice.
For months, the crew has been preparing for Nimitz's dry dock period in Bremerton. Many sailors have already moved their families here. Those without families have moved all of their personal belongings. As U.S. warships enter or leave ports, their crews man the rails. Sailors stand at parade rest, rendering honors to the host city. This long-standing tradition shows pride in our country's naval heritage. With the crew manning the rails, the challenge of making it through the Puget Sound begins.
All right, so here we are, we're pulling into Bremerton. We just came through Rich Passage, which is one of the most challenging navigation areas you can put a carrier through. It's a couple of very sharp turns. The team did a great job of getting through there. Now what we're doing here is we're getting ready to come into the dock. The pilot is making up the tugs. We're going to slow down here and lower the starboard rib because we can't lower that when we're against the pier. So first lieutenant guys are down there, the deck guys are down there making sure that we're ready to lower the rib into the water. We'll be slowing down here to 5 knots, as I said, putting the tugs alongside, and then the pilot in there with the captain overseeing him will make sure that we're all lined up to get into the pier. It's a very narrow entrance into the pier area, and we'll come along the pier. Tugs will hold us against the pier, they'll put the lines over, we'll tie up, and then get the routes down and get the crew on liberty. Should be a good time for our new home port.
Pulled into Bremerton, Washington, and we've got this large crowd of people ready to welcome us. You know, it was a long 3 days. I'm not gonna lie, but it was definitely worth it.
Four of his siblings are waiting for him today too. His grandpa from Montana is actually here too, waiting for him. I think he's down at the other gangplank, hoping that maybe he'll come down that way.
so happy and so proud of him. I'm such a proud military wife. I tell everyone my husband is a sailor in the U.S. Navy, and I'm always, people always say, how do you do this? Don't you miss him? And I usually don't have any words. There are no words. And then in a moment like this, it makes it all worth it, I guess. Times we military families, we make home wherever we go. We've been so many places, and we try to embrace the different places we go and learn about the cultures or the things that there are to do there, and just kind of enjoy. And so this is just another adventure for our family. And he's here, so it's home.
With family members and friends waiting on the pier, the crew's work is not yet complete. The crew must now move equipment off of the ship and onto a barge.
So we're just working on getting familiar with all the spaces. We have a lot more space on the barge, which is a little bit new for us, so we're just getting used to all the spacing.
Right now, I was thinking like just for CPO mess, say like 2-3 hours so far. Right now, we only brought half. We only brought half of the supplies.
It's not too bad. It kind of reminds me of like the cafeteria at school.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
At the ship's arrival in port, many of the crew scramble to grab their personal belongings before departing the ship. This can be a troublesome task in such tight quarters. Seaman Ian Kowalczyk is moving out of a space he's shared with 45 other sailors.
I love the Navy, I love the environment. I just, living in a berthing is not fun. Wake up in the middle of the night, hit your head, light and stuff. Sometimes you might fall out of your rack when the ship moves. It's rough sometimes, working 18-hour days sometimes, getting 4 hours of sleep a night, planes launching off in the middle of the night and whatnot. And now I can just go to my barracks after work and maybe take a nap, watch TV. I can even cook food if I want to. Not worry about bumping into somebody every 2 seconds. No limited space, so it's a lot to be thankful for. I'm pretty much used to this lifestyle. I like it. You never get tired of the same place for too long. You get to meet a lot of good people. It's sad that you got to leave them, but it's all part of our job. We knew that we're gonna have to deal with a lot of stress and moving on in our job. So I think it'll work out. We get to be here for another year fixing the ship, and I have so much to do in my time. I'm gonna go mountain biking. Probably gonna buy a Jeep here in February. That'll be nice. And you got Seattle like 40 minutes away. So I'm really excited. I think it's gonna be good living here. I think I got a lot to look forward to.
After most of the crew moves off of the ship, the process of moving vehicles begins. As part of the move to Bremerton, 393 personal vehicles were transported on board the ship and must now be offloaded. The process will take approximately 9 hours. As the sun sets, sailors wait for rides to take them to their new barracks. Seaman Kowalczyk waits for the bus.
You know what time it comes by? No, I have no idea. I thought they had a schedule.
As the last of the vehicles are offloaded, Petty Officer Hinton is finally able to leave.
Altogether, getting off the ship was probably a 2.5 hour process. But my day has been crazy starting with I had watch this morning. I had a brief at 08. I had to muster manning the rails. And I barely had 15 minutes to eat my fine Navy chow. Watch at 10:30, shut down the plant. Got the plant shut down. I got relieved off a watch at 15-ish. Pack a couple sea bags, and then it was get up to my truck. And once I got up here, it was kind of relaxing and nice to be back in my truck.
We moved to Port Orchard for the small town feel, and so far we've just seemed to fall in love with everything about it. It's awesome. The air is cleaner, everything moves a little slower. I've spent my entire career trying to stay away from Washington, and now that we're here, I have no clue as to why I was avoiding this place. We absolutely loved it in San Diego. We're gonna absolutely love it here. I haven't seen one single palm tree the entire time.
I don't eat the most. I eat a lot. You eat more than I do.
Yeah. Watch your fingers, sir.
There's only 4 cookies left. Is this one yours? Yeah. No way I'm eating all that.
Yes, you are.
I had to man the rails pulling out of San Diego. It just wasn't the same without you by my side.
Yes.
I kept thinking about you because I almost got to man the rails in the exact same spot that we manned them last time. And I was like, man, it would be a lot more fun if Zachary was by me.
Me.
Or you.
I've never been so happy in my life like this.
Because Daddy's home?
And whenever he goes, I cry. I sometimes cry. And when he leaves me. And when he comes home, I'm really happy. All I like is that my family comes together to have a good time together.
As the base settles in for the night, Seaman Kowalczyk's bus finally arrives.
Today, just everybody's happy, everybody's excited, everybody's like, yeah, man, I'm going to my barracks. You know, I don't have to live in the berthing anymore. It's not going to smell anymore. I can do my own laundry. I'm not going to have to worry about showering and having the ship tilted to the starboard side or something. Can't wait to see my room.
I want to be here. I really like that. But the trip didn't turn it off.
Oh, man. Wow. This is nice.
For many sailors, the barracks will become their new home. More spacious than the cramped living quarters aboard the ship, the sailors will get to enjoy more luxuries than they're used to.
Pizza rolls in the fridge already. Microwave, stove. Got 2 couches in there. It's cool.
Really messy.
This is our bedroom?
Yeah.
A closet, shoot. And a bathroom. Freaking shower. Thank God. This is awesome. You saw the ship. I mean, we live with 70 people in a room, in a single room. You know, that's stressful. Bumping into people in the morning. You know, my rack's like right in the middle of the walkway, so I have to get up every 2 seconds to let somebody by. So I got to get up earlier just so I can get dressed and not have to worry about getting up and getting down every 2 seconds. But I don't even know what to say. I have a refrigerator right here. I got a stove. I can cook now. My own washer and dryer, for God's sake. I'm used to going to the Liberty Center across the pier and washing my clothes. It's things like that make you appreciate this so much more. I mean, even if I didn't have all this stuff in here, I'd still be thankful, because it's a lot better than living on the ship.
Home. Wherever their bags hit the floor, this will be their place of rest for the next year.
Daddy's home forever. No more underwear.
The Nimitz is a mighty warship, the first in her class, and named after one of the Navy's finest admirals. But all her military strength won't help with what she now faces. This is the dry dock process, an event so precise that if the ship is off by more than 2 inches, she'd have to start all over. Before repairs and renovations can begin, the carrier must back out of her spot on the pier and move a short distance down the Puget Sound to the dry dock location. Like a car in a repair shop, the Nimitz will rest out of the water and on blocks. But first, it'll take hundreds of people working together to get her there. Before dawn, the ship starts edging towards the dry docking area, and it's going to be a long day for Nimitz and her crew. Lieutenant Niggemann is the officer of the deck today, which means the well-being of Nimitz falls on her shoulders as she coordinates from the bridge.
Currently what we're doing is we're taking the ship into dry dock. So what we've done is we've taken the hauling line and attached it to the pendant that was put through the bullnose of the ship. And what that line is to do is it's literally to haul us in. And what they're gonna do is there's line haulers from the shipyard that are gonna keep putting put lines over the ship onto chocks along the side of the ship with the water line. So what happens is they start taking in and putting lines on there with these small little tractors that you're seeing.
10 foot west, slowly drifting east.
And what they're going to do is they're going to even out the way the ship gets walked into the pier to maintain basically heading and keep a nice slow, steady pace so we stay centered all the way in until we're over the blocks that we need to be on.
We're trying to put over 1,000 feet of ship into this one small space, and it has to be done absolutely perfectly. There's a matter of somewhere around 10 to 12 feet of room on either side of the ship as we slide it into the dry dock. So the work that goes on to very slowly get that ship into the dry dock is a very delicate, very specific, and very exacting maneuver. It's a very slow, very painstaking process, but they do it with incredible accuracy, and that is partly done because or a result of all the work that they do ahead of time.
While Nimitz officers guide her from the bridge, they maintain constant communication with the shipyard crews who are busy guiding the ship from the pier.
When we set it down, we were allowed 2 inches out of any planned position. The bow could be off 2, the stern could be off 2, or it could be fore or aft 2 inches. But anything over that, we reflood and set it back down. So it's pretty tight. It's pretty tight. When you're talking a 1,000-foot long ship or 1,300 foot long ship, and you got to be within 2 inches.
Turns responding.
It's pretty tight.
Turns 1 foot west, hold steady. Stern is 1 foot to the west, hold steady.
Typically on carriers, we don't have to worry about that. We get them, because they're so big, they hold pretty steady. It's the smaller ships, submarines, stuff like that. They get a little squirrely when we're setting them down. We end up having to flood, sometimes reflood, and set them back down. But I don't ever remember having to reflood to reset a carrier down. We've always got them within tolerance.
What about the, anybody get any flotation for the shipyard? No? Okay. 2 guys that helped get into the back stand to see you, and also anybody in today's duty section, you see you too.
What we're doing right now is we're continuing to be hauled in by the main hauling line. They have log broncs that are putting basically more lines along on the Dutch bollards at the waterline and keep walking us in. So as we get further in, they actually are adding more lines to the ship to bring us into the dock. It's a nice slow movement, and as you can hear if you're listening to any of the calls for bow and stern left or east or west, that's basically them trying to get us lined up directly on top of the blocks.
Turns about 5 foot west, slowly drifting east.
And right now we're down to a foot from our marks on where they expect us to be. So they're going to slowly keep coming in, and then what they do is on the lines on the east and west side, they either tension certain lines and they'll basically ease other lines if they need to move the ship as it keeps getting further in the sill, because basically what's going to happen is eventually tugs aren't going to be able to be used anymore, and we're actually almost at that point right now. So everything's got to be done with lines under power to move the ship. Aircraft carrier is a very large gross tonnage, so it takes a lot of power and a lot of lines to move the ship at that point. So that's why they try to get us lined up so precisely before they pull us fully in.
A lot of lines under tension. I mean, when the boat gets in here, there's going to be lines all over the place under tension, tripping hazard. Lines could snap. The main goal is keep everybody safe and everybody goes home the way they came in.
The carrier is massive. She needs crews lining both sides of the pier to ensure she pulls into the dry dock unscathed. With that many people at work, safety is a huge concern.
This isn't a fast process. It's not meant to be a fast process. It's basically something that you got to take your time on, otherwise you can either damage the shipyard itself, you can damage the ship, and we don't want to be damaging anything in the process. And really there is no reason to go fast about this, because we want to make sure everyone stays safe in the whole process. They already put the centering tackle on, centering the ship, and then basically what they do from there is once they have the ship centered and they think that we're right where they want us over the blocks, they swim the sill to make sure that it's clear, which they've already done and called us clear. And so the caisson is currently being installed in the aft end of the ship. And the caisson is there to basically seal us in, and they can start dewatering the sill. So once they start, they can't start dewatering until that sill is completely, till we're completely sealed in. And that process of getting the caisson in place can take up to an hour, hour and a half. And the reason is because it is a very valuable, the sill that we're in is very valuable, so they have to basically take it slow, you know, be very cautious, make sure that we don't harm anything in the process of trying to do it and not hurry ourselves and actually damage the sill itself. So once they finally have that all in place, we'll commence dewatering, and that's just all dependent on how many pumps they have available.
Okay, so it's about 10 o'clock. We've been in the dock for about 2.5 hours, getting in position. They just brought the caisson over and they're getting ready to install it. We just watched them put power onto it, this big old power cord, and just heard some pumps start up, so it looks like they're starting to pump water into the caisson. So basically what we're going to see is this big floating thing here kind of sink into a channel. It's keyed into the side of the dry dock, and then that will create a watertight seal. And then once they're convinced they have a watertight seal, they can start pumping the water out. And right before they pump the water out, they're going to make sure that we are plus or minus 2 inches side to side, fore and aft, and askew. So when we land on the blocks, which are on the bottom of the dry dock, we land perfectly straight and in a way that will support the weight of the ship on all those wood blocks down there.
Hey Bob, you still on your tree up there?
With the escort phase complete, the tugboat's back out of the sill. It's now up to the line handlers to bring the Nimitz in. The tugboats begin to maneuver the caisson into position. The caisson will be placed behind the Nimitz, sealing her in so the water can be drained.
Basically, we're at the point where we got our pilots were ready to disembark the ship and got on our final tug. So the tug that was on the aft end of the ship was actually not holding our position, but maintaining the speed of which we were going in, and could slow us down if necessary if the winch was bringing us in too quickly. So basically, the pilots are now in charge of going over to pick up the caisson that's going to seal us into the dock once we get the ship fully in. So now the ship is basically under the power of all the lines that we have.
We'll actually start dewatering pumps in the caisson, pumping water out of the caisson, sinking it. So it'll get centered in place. Once it's centered in place, we'll start removing water from the dry dock, lowering the ship down onto the blocks. And we'll center the ship up over the blocks, land it, pump the dock dry.
We've only moved down 2 feet, so it's, you know, it's not going to be super noticeable quite yet, but once we've dropped down, you know, another 20 feet, 30 feet, it'll definitely be noticeable from when we started.
It's still pretty amazing that they can do all that, but then they got this thing perfectly centered over these blocks. And it's massive, dude. It's a massive ship, and they were able, they got the stuff down. So I think it's pretty cool.
Nimitz has come as far as she can. The dewatering of the dry dock and settling of the ship on blocks falls to the shipyard crew. As they continue to work, the crew on the bridge starts to wrap things up for the day.
I mean, it's time for the quarterdeck to take over and let the docking officer continue to pump down the sill as soon as they are complete with the 20-foot signature lines.
The officer of the deck is shifting the watch from the bridge to the quarterdeck.
We had a minimal amount of folks, but still quite a few people, and they did fantastic. All the things, we were underway actually a little bit early, ready to go. The ship performed flawlessly to get to where we needed to be. Everything was set, systems were ready, people were ready, briefed up, they were on time. It was a very interesting process and pretty neat to see. Very well done, and like I said, they just nailed it. They did a great job to get us exactly where we needed to be.
That was an experience, considering this is the first time in 5 years I've stood both made of the watch. I'm off now, man. Officer deck shifted the watch from the bridge, so now the boatswain's watch is no longer required. All words will be passed down from the deck house, the petty officer to the watch. No need for a BMOW no more, man. So I'm gonna go out there into the cold and hopefully get to go home pretty soon, get some sleep. But it's been a long morning, but it's finally over.
An honor to actually get to do this because this isn't something you do every day, and it went very smoothly. We were very lucky to have a great crew working. Everybody was on board with getting stuff done, proactive and verbal about when things weren't going the way they needed to. Everybody did really well, and it made our job up here on the bridge a lot easier. So everybody's happy, captain's happy, the navigator's happy, and the crazy thing is that now we are
USS Nimitz is filled with ventilation tubes and electrical wires. A machine being kept alive as it sits lifeless on blocks. In a space normally reserved for aircraft, the hangar bay now holds trailers and shops for contractors. This is the change everyone on the ship has been waiting for. The work in dry dock is about to begin.
Difficult. You know, you got people grinding all the time. There's actually some going on right behind us right now. But you're sitting in your shop or wherever you work, and you're getting asked to do things, and it's hard to hear.
It's coming from all over. You really don't know where. It's like you're like, oh, is it above you? Is it next door to you? Is it below you? Or have no idea because it just rattles all over.
It's difficult, but you know, I think everyone manages to get by and get through it and get the work done that they need to get done.
The noise is tough on the sailors, but there is much work to be done.
Well, just for ship's force work, there's about 10,000 different work items. For the alteration installation teams for the SCDs or ship bolts that are getting installed, there's probably about 2,000 different work items. The shipyard has 15 or 20,000 different work items. I know that they have removed, to date, I believe, 50,000 feet of cable. The land installation is, from what I understand, they're going to total out about 250,000 feet of cable that they've removed, and then they're installing 250,000 feet of cable. So looking at all these jobs and all this work and trying to coordinate everything in one integrated schedule is very difficult.
Rehabilitation is one of the projects Nimitz sailors will be working on throughout the ship.
This is actually the air wing master sheet berthing, and what we did is we had to rip up all the tiles, all the underlayment, which is the concrete under the tile, take the actual deck down to bare metal, rip up all the old primer, all the old paint, and that might have been on it. And now these guys are actually about to start laying down new primer, and then hopefully the next day or two after the primer is dry, they're going to lay down new underlayment, which, like I said, is the concrete. And once that's dry and good to go, they're going to lay down glue on top of the underlayment, and then tile on top of that.
After the deck is removed and primer is down, another team will come in and install new lockers and sleeping racks. Cooperation between sailors and contractors is essential.
It's kind of a morale booster for me because every day I come into work, it's like the same routine. However, when we come here, it's like we learn something new every day. Versus we come to work, the same routine over and over again. And here we learn a lot. We learn a lot from the contractors with learning what screws go where because each equipment has a different screw. So we have to learn what screw goes where, make sure that the racks are tight so they don't move or anything. And it's like a lot of teamwork put into it.
They're doing a pretty good job. They're right now they're tying their lockers down, the racks down. Then they're going to start putting the towel bars on, which is what the sailors hang the CPO, the chiefs aren't going to hang their towels on. Then they're going to put the EEBDs on. After that's done, we'll tie all racks down. The sailors will. We'll instruct them on how to do that the safe way. Then after that, we'll start putting in the CPO lockers. They should be coming over here shortly. We're going to build 4 more sets of racks, get those out of the way, then put all of our lockers in. That's about it for the process of that.
These are the VRT contractors that come in and work on our equipment. They do the technical maintenance that we can't do by ourselves. They specialize in, like right now they're doing a restack of our engine shivs, which require basically the entire engine system to be broken apart, repacked and replaced. A lot of times we'll be doing a maintenance that requires a certain tool or expertise, and if we can't provide that, they do. So they're flown out here from San Diego, and they actually specialize in the taking apart and the measurements and the replacing and the repacking of all of our ships. We work with these guys quite often as far as contractors. They usually come in about every 6 months to do these restacks, so we know them, most of us know them by first name, and we have a pretty good relationship on our spaces as a whole and our equipment.
On the outside of the ship, contractors have set up scaffolding in preparation for work over the side.
You know, if you look up on the starboard side up forward, you'll see where they're putting a new sponson on for the CWIS, but there's another contractor, a different company, that is doing all the catwalk preservation, and right below them is a different company that's doing hull preservation and tank work. So it can be very challenging sometimes trying to keep everybody working but out of each other's way.
Contractors will seal these areas along the catwalks off to keep weather conditions out and environmental hazards within from affecting other work around them.
As you can see the walkthrough, we are getting ready to sandblast to remove all the paint. We have to come in to make sure everything is pre-wrapped, rubber, containing with plastic, self-staging to make sure everybody's safe. So we have to contain everything on the side of the ship to keep out in the atmosphere and down below in the dry dock for contamination. We don't want to drop anything on anybody in the dry dock. We don't want to get any dust in the air.
After the ship is repainted, electricians can reinstall electrical equipment along the catwalks.
We're doing a lot of the catwalk and bulwark preservation. Some of the stuff has been identified as deteriorated, too far to be safe, so we came back ahead of time so we didn't have to remove paint and just tape the areas that we knew we were going to be replacing. We have a lot of electrical work for removals for the paint job. As you can see behind me, our electricians are reinstalling some of the lights. They're just now getting going. We were just able to get in here today, so.
I tried to reclamp with the existing ones, cables, but it's not, they're breaking off. So what I'm doing is taking off the old ones, cleaning them all up, putting some new clamps on with anti-seize. So that way it keeps it from rusting. So I've done all the posts that way as well as the studs. And then we're gonna go ahead and mount the cable back in place. Put a new single clamp back on.
Today, the commander of Carrier Strike Group 11, Rear Admiral Gearier, is touring the bottom of the dry dock to see the changes being made to the massive warship. The 7 feet of blocks holds 95,000 tons over the dock workers' heads as they chip away paint and rust from the hull. Within weeks, the bottom of the ship is filled with ventilation and contained to keep contractors safe from hazardous work being done inside the tanks.
Right now we're in the process of blasting. We're in day 3 of blasting, so doing pretty good. These signs represent the danger. So you can see it says danger, sandblast in progress. Danger, lead, cadmium, arsenic. Cautious, double hearing protection. It gets really loud down here. And then booties are required. One of the reasons why we said booties are required is one, you don't want to damage your boots, obviously where you're blasted. And two, the salts, the contamination from your boots will get on the metal and it'll contaminate the metal and it will have to re-blast. So booties is more protection for the metal that we're blasting the surface. So these are the blast hoses going inside this tank. On the other side of this wall right here is our machine house. It has 4 machines in it. I got 4 blasters in here, and I got 2 recovery guys. The recovery guys are using these hoses right here. Those hoses are hooked up to a JT, which is the vacuum system. And what their job is pretty much is recover all the grit right back in that machine, so that way the guys can keep blasting. If I don't have grit, then my guys can't blast.
Admiral Gearier continues his inspection of the hull outside of the contained area. The back of the ship will also be zoned off after the propellers and rudders are removed. Once contained, the hull is inspected. Areas with the worst deterioration will be cut out and replaced after the rest of the hull is painted to ensure the majority of the work gets finished on time. The hull of the ship is repainted with a special layer that prevents crustacean from growing and weighing down the ship. Every day comes to an end. Nimitz sailors and shipyard workers are ready to go home. But work on the ship will continue for several more months